Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. This is the Senate Finance and Senate Transportation Finance and Policy Committee. We have two bills on the schedule for today. But before I get to the bills, I just wanted to mention to members that we have now run through the bills that are necessary to be heard before first deadline. So there will be no hearing, no transportation hearing on Thursday. We get a day off. I know there's a lot of unhappy folks about that, but no hearing on Thursday. I just wanted you to know. And with that, we will get started with our agenda. The first bill up is Senate File 3941, Senator Johnson. Oh, he's not here yet. Senator Kiffmeyer, are you ready to go? Oh, and incidentally, members, I forgot to mention, both of these bills today are going to be laid over, just so that you know. Senator Kiffmeyer, your bill, Senate File 3133.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. So this bill is about pavement life cycle cost analysis. Its real purpose is to take a look at both asphalt and concrete. Now, on a particular roadway, which one is best suited by basis of cost analysis. So while they are both good products, nevertheless, there are times when concrete is the best and other times where asphalt is the best. And so this is a process by which they'd go through taking a look at that. We have current law that does have some life cycle costs. So it's not a new concept, but what this does is elevates the information to fit current standards of today and current information. So we're going to update that. But Mr. Chair, I do have a testifier who is way more knowledgeable about these issues than I am. And so I'd like them to, like Matt here, to go ahead and go through the information that we have. And we also have, so he's with the concrete paving, and then we have Abby Brydock, who is with the Minnesota Asphalt Association. And wonder of wonders, they're working together to get this bill done, and that's really good news. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. And Mr. Zeller, if you'd identify yourself for the record, with whom you are associated, and proceed with your testimony, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Matt Zeller. I am the Executive Director at the Concrete Paving Association of Minnesota. Been there for 20 some years. I was at MnDOT for 10 years before that. Took my time getting through college, but I've pretty much been building roads for over 40 years. So been around the block once or twice when it comes to these things. We've been out and we met with a handful of you folks about this legislation and what it's about. And just a little history is back in 2010, as Senator Kiffmeyer mentioned, there was legislation passed that required MnDOT to do a life cycle cost analysis on all the pavements that MnDOT was going to build. And it was really a minimal requirement. It left things open to MnDOT, didn't tell them how to do anything, very open. A few years later, in 2014, the legislative auditor also audited their program, their pavement selection program, and came back with a nice handful of recommendations and some things that MnDOT really should do. But really, there wasn't a lot done with those recommendations. And it kind of, as we've gone through the years, we hoped it would work its way out. But some things just over the last couple of years that really got us thinking about this was on Highway 169 up in Elk River, job being built right now. MnDOT went through that and looked at the life cycle cost, and they came out with 8 inches of bituminous versus 9 inches of concrete. The 8 inches of bituminous was a 20-year design, 9 inches of concrete, 35-year design. So 1 inch different for slightly less than half, or for twice the life. And I just ran the MnDOT's design. 10 inches would have easily been over a 50-year design. So inch for inch, concrete and asphalt are relatively close in price. So how did we lose out on that? Another job, Highway 212. MnDOT used prices to develop their estimate based on metro area averages. So prices like we'd normally get for I-94 or 35W. But 212 was out in the country, really didn't have that sort of requirements. There was another job in Highway 23 out in the Paynesville area. The MnDOT district used prices out in the District 8 area. They only had one job that was bid recently, and so they used those prices. Again, that was a relatively complicated job, required a lot of staging, so the pricing was quite high. So rather than look at around the state for other jobs that had similar attributes, they just used that one estimate. And then the last one I wanted to bring up, and again, we've talked to some of you about this, on Highway 371 up by Baxter. On the concrete design and the requirements in the life cycle cost law requires MnDOT to compare equal design lives. So what they typically do is they'll look at a 20-year asphalt option and a 20-year concrete option, and then sometimes do a lower life asphalt or a longer life concrete. In this case, they did a 20-year concrete that was 6.2 inches. They rounded it to 7. They did a 35-year design life that was 6.7 inches, rounded it to 7. And so they actually had different maintenance schedules over the lives of those two options, even though they were the exact same design. When we ran out the life to actually get to a 7-inch concrete pavement, it would have been 43 years. So they didn't give us the credit for the life, and they're, had these, maintenance schedules that really didn't make sense. So we thought that working with the legislature would be the best option to come up with a more detailed way of doing the life cycle cost analysis. MnDOT really didn't seem to want to make changes. So we worked with what the recommendations of what the legislative auditor had to come up with these changes that are presented here today. We've talked to the asphalt industry. We've talked to MnDOT. The asphalt industry is pretty much in agreement with most of what's in there. MnDOT, at one point, some of their pavement design experts said, hey, these are really good ideas. Why didn't we come up with them? So again, there's some really good ideas in there. Probably the biggest issue that the asphalt industry and the concrete industry are not going to agree on is the fuel efficiency for smoothness and stiffness of the roadways. And again, that's something that I think as we get more and more into the whole sustainability, environmental discussions, there's a lot of work being done on this, and it can be shown. It's already been proven. There's work at MIT. If anybody wants to argue with MIT, I don't. I'm a bright fella, but I'm not going to go up against them. Just, like I said, I don't want to drag too far into this, because again, there's fuel savings out there for the public. There's CO2 savings out there for the public. And again, a lot of this is written up in here. So with that, I'm going to wrap up what I have to say, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. And again, sorry about the voice, but I was teaching a class online today for almost 2 days. I haven't yelled at kids and hockey coach for a while, so my voice is breaking up.
Thank you, Mr. Zeller. Next testifier up is Abby Breddick. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record, with whom you are associated, and please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Happy to be here today in person. My name is Abby Breiduck. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Asphalt Pavement Association. We're an association that founded in 1942, and our membership is comprised of companies ranging from small driveway paving operators to large construction companies that place asphalt on roads, airports, parking lots, et cetera. I want to say that, as mentioned, we definitely appreciate a lot of the concepts in this bill. LCCA are something that we talk about a lot amongst our membership with the MnDOT and with Concrete Association. They can be a very helpful tool in selecting the proper pavement for a road, but they can also be very, very complicated. So it's not surprising that there are maybe a couple points that we disagree on about which best inputs there are to put into some of these calculations. So we do support a lot of the aims. We would definitely be supportive of the in collaboration that this bill would provide between the industries and MnDOT to help design some of the roads, to give some collaboration, some innovation that we could work together on. We also think that that there's a little bit more work that can be done. I think we've collaborated with CPAM. We've talked about some changes that can make the bill a lot better, and many of those we agree on. But I will also bring up the excess fuel consumption. I think that's going to be definitely the point of contention if we want to find some peace in the valley, as we like to say, about the approach. You know, what we see is a lot of conflicting reports, conflicting studies and research on this topic, as far as what the best way to approach fuel consumption and how to measure it. And so we would be supportive of leaving this section out. And as mentioned, MnDOT is currently doing research on these different kinds of environmental product declarations. We'd like to see some of that research play out on the local level before we put anything in legislation that would mandate one way or the other how we look at the excess fuel consumption. I also think that one thing that's missing from the legislation from our perspective is the inclusion of end-of-life salvage values, what happens at the end of the life of a road, what you need to do with that. Asphalt is 100% recycled product and the most recycled product in the United States. And so the salvage value for us is an important part of asphalt pavements, and that we think should be included in the life cycle costs. But we are committed to continue to work with CPAM and also MnDOT to find some language that could be amenable on the items that at least we agree on, and maybe some way to approach the fuel consumption issue, so that we have something that could be meaningful and helpful to some meaningful guidance to MnDOT when we're trying to figure out what the best value is for our taxpayers in our road construction industries. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have up interim commissioner from MnDOT, Nancy Daubenberger. Commissioner, welcome to the committee. I think this is the first time, I guess. I don't know if it's the first time you've been here, but first time as commissioner. I just want to welcome you. And if you would just identify yourself for the record and then proceed with your testimony, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Yes, this is my first time as interim commissioner testifying to the Senate Transportation Committee. So thank you for that and allowing me to have this opportunity to speak on this bill today. As the chair mentioned, Nancy Daubenberger, my title is interim commissioner for MnDOT, and I'm here today with MnDOT's Director of Materials and Road Research, Glenn Engstrom, who I might be calling up for any technical questions that I can't answer offhand. MnDOT appreciates the thoughtful approach to proposing additional considerations for performing a life cycle cost analysis for our pavements. The excess fuel consumption calculation requirements being proposed in this legislation are areas MnDOT is currently starting to explore. And in fact, our Office of Materials and Road Research is currently involved in research on how roughness-induced fuel consumption models for heavy-duty trucks can work into our life cycle cost analyses. Improving fuel efficiency is a strategy that works toward MnDOT's goals for decarbonizing transportation. However, MnDOT has serious concerns about requiring this in legislation at this time, since it is premature to require these considerations prior to knowing what impact this could have on our program and our system performance. The use of life cycle cost analysis for pavement selection was established in legislation approximately a decade ago. And in consideration of adding fuel efficiency calculations, we should also explore other relevant factors for consideration. This bill could cause us to direct most of our pavement investments on high volume roads, especially in the metro area. Lower volume roads would then deteriorate or have less expensive fixes applied to them. MnDOT's recommendation is to have the legislature direct us to do a study on these issues in collaboration with both industries, both paving industries, and report back with a consensus of recommendations for the 2024 legislative session. If interested, we'd be happy to share the recommendations, comments, concerns that we shared with the Concrete Paving Association, with the Transportation Committee. And we are committed to continuing to work collaboratively with both industries on these elements that could be added or refined in our life cycle cost analyses. So thank you for letting me share our thoughts. And along with my colleague, Mr. Engstrom, I stand ready for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Members, questions? Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Initially, I just wanted to address my friend Commissioner Darbenberger. We go back a long way, but I actually have a legitimate question. So my question, this bill actually makes sense to me, and I understand why 60 years in online 2.31 was chosen for the design life, because if we are comparing concrete at a minimum depth of 7 inches, which is required by some special provision, that might take us out to 58 years or something. So I totally understand that. For my colleagues, there's a minimum amount of concrete pavement that we can place. I know they're enthralled at this. And so if we have to go to the minimum thickness, then that shows a design life for concrete that would make a significant difference if we were also designing the bituminous pavement for that same amount. So I get the 60 years. My concern, as somebody who has taught pavement design many times, is to make assumptions about traffic and even vehicle gas consumption ahead 60 years is a significant challenge. Especially when we put this fuel consumption factor in, as Commissioner Daubenberger mentioned. Think back 60 years from today, 1962. Believe it or not, I'm not even 60 years old, and we had cars with a much different consumption, even engine type, right? I mean, everything was different. Trucks were loaded different, axle weights were different. And so I understand, I totally get it, that if we do a life cycle cost analysis, we make the same assumptions for concrete and asphalt, but I do know that extrapolated over 60 years, those assumptions may impact the concrete results differently than they would impact the bituminous results. So I think this is a good bill, and I do very much support it. My concern is in the 60 years that we may, there's a couple engineers in here who have done pavement design. You know that you can tweak the input variables and get very different results. So I'm nervous about the 60 years. However, I do understand why it was used after conversations with Mr. Zeller. So I just want to reflect that we could be kind of messing up our projections with such a long time period. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions from members? Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I think, is initially to Interim Commissioner Daubenberger. I was reminded of a healthy and frank exchange of views going back a couple of years between yourself and Mr. Zeller, and frustration being expressed by PAM, and your response was more along the lines of the overall, oops, I can't do that, go off camera, I keep forgetting that. Addressed kind of the larger picture. So, the bill, if I understand it correctly, is really focused on project by project analysis of which paving surfaces should be selected. And that was also the expression of frustration in the letter. Your response was, that's all well and fine, but if we reserve 50%, for example, of all of the projects for concrete, then we wouldn't be able to do as many projects, and then that would have an overall net negative effect on our road performance measures. Sure, we could do a bunch of roads for more expensive, but we would do fewer miles, and then we would have an overall degradation. Is that still a perspective that you have on the whole matter?
Commissioner.
Mr. Chair and Senator, thank you for that question. Yes, continuing our current mix of fixes approach, project by project basis, where we look at long-term, medium, short-term, or what we call preventive maintenance types of fixes, really is the most cost-effective and prudent approach. Using only longer-term fixes, such as concrete, can cost too much per mile to cover enough of our system. Currently, we consider our system, the state highway system, which includes interstates, 14,000 lane miles. And to keep up our pavement measures for smoothness and then longer term conditions, keeping everything in consideration as we're making those different types of investments, we really need to cover an average of 700 to 1,000 lane miles per construction season. And so yes, that is still a concern of MnDOT, is if we have legislation that points us to longer term fixes and requiring those in more instances than what we would do to spread out the different types of fixes, we would run into a situation where we would not have enough smooth pavements. Our pavement condition measures would go down. That could require federal funds to be directed to pavements when maybe it needs to go towards other things. And so it really constricts us. And that's where we need to maintain flexibility in pavement choices.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you. So I'm sorry.
Well, Mr. Chair, to that point, if you're still on that point, Senator
Yeah,
Dibble, Mr. Chair, Mr. Zeller would like to comment on that.
Mr. Zeller.
Mr. Chair, Senators, again, it's kind of a misnomer when you hear MnDOT's references to short-term, medium-term, and long-term. MnDOT considers a long-term fix anything that's over 20 years. Concrete's easily designed for 50 or 75. MnDOT's own pavement management folks will tell you that part of the biggest problem we have is we only look out 20 years. Our pavement management focuses on smoothness of roads. And so it encourages us to try and make every road smoother. So when we spread the peanut butter thinner, we cover more roads, but they don't last as long. Whereas if we started doing things to last 50 plus years long, eventually we're not going to have to come back and fix that road so soon. So we will get into a point in a while. It's going to be a lot of pain before there's gain, but we've followed this same system for so long. That's why our roads are really in such poor condition. It's not that we don't have enough money. We have plenty of money. It's the way we've fixed our roads for decades. We've got to think smarter. We've got to do better. Long-term investments on almost anything in the world are a better investment than a short-term investment.
Senator Dibble.
I have some questions kind of formulating, but I'll let them ripen.
You want to let it percolate a little?
Percolate, yeah, because I think Mr. Zeller kind of responded to the follow-up that I had on this particular subject.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My statement is directed at Mr. Zeller. I would caution him to not say we have plenty of money when we talk about roads and maintenance, because frankly, we don't have plenty of money. And while I appreciate what you said, I mean, I totally agree with you that if we are going to be making a change in our strategy to build roads as we reconstruct them for 50 years. That's great. The challenge is getting over that hump, as you mentioned. And so a good analogy would be some of us can only afford to buy a used, I mean, think of your first car. My first car was a Ford LTD. I think it literally cost $250. And I drove it until it died. I think it died at a concrete plant, by the way. And then I bought another one, a Ford Pinto or some other terrible car. I couldn't make the investment, but I still needed to get around. And I think everybody's nodding their heads. I get the point, right? So while I would have loved to have bought a brand new, what was my first brand new car? A Honda Accord. I would have loved that. I had to build up the resources. And so while I agree with your methodology and your ideas, I think they're great. I do caution this committee that unless we're willing to make an investment that would allow us to pave even low volume roads in concrete like they do in Iowa and other states, we have to be prepared for that, or we're going to get a lot of calls from constituents saying, when are we going to get a new road? County Road 15 is whatever. And then poor Commissioner Daubenberger will have to explain why we're investing in concrete. Just like a car, if you're going to be spending more money on one thing, you have less to spend on others. So again, just to remind Mr. Zeller, we do not have plenty of money, but put that in your memory, Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is similar to what Senator Johnson Stewart was saying. I was remembering in G15 a number of years ago. And by the way, Mr. Zeller, I pulled out the summary from the 2014 report because I remember this well. But I remember having this very conversation that in the ideal world, we would, we would love to do this. We would love to invest in what we think might be the longest lasting solution. But because we don't have all the cash on hand to make all the improvements that need to be done, it's a balancing act. That's just the reality. And I asked that question at that time, and Commissioner Daubenberger, good to see you again. I mean, is that a fair restatement of what you're talking about?
Commissioner, go ahead.
Mr. Chair and Senator, that is a fair restatement of what I am talking about. It is a careful balance that we need to take as we're approaching these pavement decisions and having that right mix based on the project type.
Thank you. So
Follow up, Senator Kent.
thank you, Mr. Chair. And so that's just it. I mean, we are obviously limited by the available funds that we have to service our entire system across this wonderful, very large state. While all of us would love to buy better investment cars or shoes or whatever it is, furniture, whatever it is, we can't all afford to do that. We have to balance all those needs with the longer term investments with those that just help us do what we need to do. So anyway, as for this bill, let's keep working on it.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess one of the questions I have is when I look at this, and what I usually am told is that labor is usually our most costly piece when we're redoing roads, when we're doing anything. It seems like the cost of labor is the key. I also would say, isn't there a cost to disruption of getting goods to where they're going? So do we not figure in all those costs? Because I tell you what, I'm not that old, but I've seen roads consistently redone, whether it be a mill and overlay or whatever it is. And it seems like the disruption to traffic and the cost of labor would have really made sense just to actually rebuild the road, make it right, so you do it once instead of in that 20 or 60 years, you've done it 3 times. So doesn't that labor cost and doesn't that disruption to traffic and getting goods to where it needs to go have a cost, and wouldn't that figure into the mix?
Commissioner Daubenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator. Yes, so considerations that we take into account as we're considering what type of pavement should be proposed for a project include the cost, so the initial bid cost, as well as the more immediate, within the life of the pavement, intermediate costs. Then the remaining service life, deterioration curves, but then also when that works into the life cycle cost analyses, then we also have our project managers and our pavement engineers in our districts who consider other things as well. And that could be like constructability, pavement type continuity. So what other pavement types are out there, what you're matching into, traffic control issues, effects on businesses. Those are other things that get taken into account besides life cycle cost analysis items.
Commissioner Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just say that, you know, if you have done it that way for so long, that is what's going to be there. And you will always be patching into the same thing again. I mean, if we don't break the cycle, we'll never get out of it. And I think what we've done is we've got trying to keep smooth roads out there, which keeps shortening the life cycle of that road, has now got us to the point where every 10, 12 years, we're looking at throwing some more asphalt down or doing another patch on a piece of road. To me, the labor costs and the disruptions are enormous out there. And you know, you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it again, I don't really give a rip what it's made out of. But we want the best return and the best return on our investment of the dollar. And I don't think we've got there. I think I've driven trucks all over the world. And I've taken the heaviest truck with an M1 tank across bridges that were 100 years old. Now, someone might say, well, that was over-engineered when they built that for horse and buggy. But I will tell you that I think the return on investment on that has been excellent.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question is for Commissioner Daubenberger, and it comes out of the bill. It kind of keys off of the report from a couple of years, or from 2014, the OLA report, and that really has to do with you know, not comparing apples to oranges, to really evaluate the pavement types based on their characteristics versus trying to like make them equal in depth and life cycle, you know, the amount of life that they have to give and that sort of thing. Just really evaluating concrete on its characteristics and what it has to offer, asphalt based on its characteristics and what it has to offer. How to respond to that? I mean that was one of the critiques of the legislative auditor was you know, don't create artificial life cycles that don't suit the material. That's one of the premises of the bill I see on page 2 and in a couple of other spots. How do you respond to that? I mean, do you believe that MnDOT is trying to kind of force an apples to apples that turns out to be actually an apples to oranges comparison, that it hasn't actually responded to the advice of the legislative auditor? And how do you respond to the direction to improve upon that type of analysis in the bill?
Commissioner Daubenberger.
Mr. Chair and Senator, yes, we have taken that recommendation, that OLA recommendation, very seriously. And that is a discussion we have as we're doing life cycle cost analyses, is we need to make sure we are comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges. And sometimes we'll go through different iterations, comparing different pavement types to make sure that we are making the best decisions on projects. As was noted, return on investment is very important to us. And I would say that we have pavements now that have better performance. We've gotten better performance over the years because of our collaboration with both industries in making changes to our pavement mixes, how we pave out there, and our pavement sections in general, and our decision making. And we would very much welcome the opportunity to continue working collaboratively with both industries to look into our life cycle cost analysis and consider what else should be taken into account. How do we need to evolve with our life cycle cost analysis and make sure that considerations when it comes to things like fuel escalation, but other environmental or other cost concerns too, are all taken into consideration, and we are doing that best apples to apples comparison.
Thank you. Other member questions? Seeing none. Senator
Mr. Chair,
Kiffmeyer.
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. We've all gone to the experience of our first car to that. But on the other hand, each time when you bought a used car and it was there, you bought a good one because it was even more important for you. It had to last and it was more critical to you than any other time. But probably the biggest thing is when I hear the short, medium, and long, and that the long is 20 years, that is, I don't think makes sense. I think long in the capacity of what we have today should be a minimum of 50 years. Because if you did that consistently, that means you'd have some of your shorts, you need that. Not everything needs a 50-year span or can tolerate a little bit less. And then you have your medium that goes into the 25 to 30 and then the 50 to 60. Over a period of time, when you start building that into your road system, after a while, you're going to catch up with that. And you're not going to be having to do that. And there is a cost. As someone who drives from Big Lake on Highway 10 to 35E to 94, and I just got a notice yesterday, they're doing another stretch of road in Anoka. So just about the time I was thinking, oh, it's going to go pretty good, I have another stretch. It's going to be single lane where it's usually 2 lanes for 6 months. And you want to talk about disruption. This is a heavily traveled commercial, tourist, business, personal, and they're going to be going through this again. And there is a cost to that. There's a cost in fuel. There's a cost in labor time, moving goods, supply chain, when they're not able to move their goods efficiently. And so I'm living it and it's really important. But if we stretch that long into that 50, 60 year, so we had short, medium, and truly long, then you have a chance. But nobody's saying you should immediately start and build everything with the 50 to 60 years. There definitely should be some patterning of all that and get us to that. But the power of doing that and having a road that's good for 50, 60 years, and you don't have to go back there. And that lets you put your time and energies into something else and get them into that same mode. And that year upon year of kind of thing going. And so the real value here, and the question sometimes is about using that, but it is very, very important. And it was amazing to me of taking a look at the difference between 1 inch more and the years you got out of it, 2 inches more. And as we all know, the house you built 20 years ago at the prices of lumber then, and you took that same house and you built it today, you're looking at least double the cost, and lately probably triple. And so the value of that when you initially build that road, and again, we're talking about pacing it out, but when you do that, you have that opportunity to do that. Your cost also, when you amortize that over a 50 to 60 year at the cost of the first year, just think of what you get instead of going back and doing it again 20 years later, where costs have now doubled. And so there's a real economy here that I think MnDOT would be really good. And I think this committee and Transportation Committee in general, I think is being very practical about looking at what you can do, but some sort of legislation like this that helps give some guide rails to that, not an immediate change to everything going 50. I know that I, as chief author, the bituminous and the concrete, and you, Commissioner, you can come up with something that helps to get us to that point, instead of just repeating 20-year, 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 and you're just coming back and at double the cost compared to 1 year to looking at a 50-year. I think that's worth looking at. I'd love to work with you on that.
Thank you. Great discussion. Thank you testifiers for coming in. Senate File 3133 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. Next up, we have Senator Johnson. Senator Johnson, welcome to the committee. Senate File number 3941 to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was trying to figure out how to extend the metaphor of a used car here, but I don't think it's going to apply to conditioned, unconditioned seed. So we'll just make this short and sweet. This is a clarification, Mr. Chair, of language that we currently have.
Senator Johnson, I believe you have an A1 technical amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. So if you want to go jump to that, we can take that
Sure,
amendment too.
I understand that's an author's amendment. So all those in favor of the A1 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Senator Johnson, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in the interest of time, I'll pass it over to my testifier to begin the testimony on this bill.
Senator Johnson, I apologize. We needed someone to move your A1 amendment. My mistake. Would someone move, Senator Osmic moves the A1. All those in favor say by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator Osmic. Senator Johnson, to your bill and to your testifier. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Bruce Clayman, I represent the Minnesota Turf Seed Council on this issue. And thanks, Senator Johnson, for bringing it. This is really kind of a district issue for him, constituent matter. And I represent the growers and processors of grass seed up in that neck of the woods. And as he said, this is a bit of a clarification bill, but it may be plowing some new ground. I'm not quite sure. But to address the A1, you'll see it's raw or processed. We used conditioned and unconditioned. There are really two kinds of grass seed. There's conditioned and unconditioned. One is raw, one is clean. And what we're trying to get at here is the transportation of the grass seed. And the grass seed is grown up there in a 2-year cycle. It's planted typically with wheat or barley or some other small grain. You plant it. And then after the wheat's taken off in August of the first year, you just let it grow and it's already established. In the second year, it comes forth with a head full of seed, and you take that as a small grain as well. So it's clearly an agricultural crop, which we already have on lines 1.9 and 110. Comes off a combine, comes off a field. What they do with it then is they take it to one of 3 mills up there. There's 2 in Roseau and 1 in Lake of the Woods, and they condition it. And all that means is they take the hulls and light seed, stems, foreign material, and with it, essentially a big fan, they blow it out and you're left with clean seed. If you ever gone to one of your retail outlets here, and bought a 5-pound bag of seed, there's a germination on it, and you want clean seed. And so the transportation of that after it's been cleaned is what we're getting at here. That would be the processed. Now, the industry calls it conditioned. In talking with MnDOT yesterday, there was no definition of conditioned, and they preferred a process definition, and that's what led to the A1. What the industry is trying to do here is take this finished seed in containers up to Winnipeg. Right now, they haul partial loads. This bill will allow them to utilize a permit that's not part of your bill. It comes in the section below. And this was passed in 2008, Senator Dibble. I'm sure you remember this discussion on the raw and unprocessed ag products back in 2008. And we had a list of those. And what they're trying to do is take the containers up to Winnipeg. And right now they haul partial loads. And this would allow them to use the 97,000 pound on 7-axle permit. It's $500 a year. And that would allow them to take a full container. The full truck, when the container's full, weighs about 92. So this would simply qualify this seed to be transported to Winnipeg in a container. And that's the bill, members.
Thank you, Mr. Clevin. Next testifier, Ms. Sarah Erickson on my list. Ms. Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairs, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Erickson. I'm here today representing the Minnesota Regional Rail Association. I'm here today to share our concerns with Senate File 3941. The Minnesota rail industry has consistently taken a position against continued exemptions that allow for bigger and heavier trucks on Minnesota roadways. Exemptions to the state and federal 80,000 pound weight limit is a slippery slope. Every time the legislature approves a truck weight exemption, it becomes precedent for the next time. When the state is making decisions that make it easier to pass legislation affecting our economic interests and that also potentially affect competition between industries, we will always have a concern. We appreciate that this one instance might not affect us directly, but we never want these exemptions to be a matter of course. Taken one by one, they can seem innocuous, but added together, they fundamentally shift how the transportation market works in Minnesota. We don't believe that government should be in the business of picking winners and losers. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify today, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Erickson. Member questions? Seeing none, Senator Johnson,
Well,
closing comments.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think with that, just thank you for your time today. And this is a district concern that we have. So I appreciate you entertaining the bill today.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Senate File 3941 will be laid over for possible, Senate File 3941 as amended will be laid over for possible inclusion. Members, we have nothing else on our agenda, so we are hereby adjourned. Thank you.